All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Dale, for playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I picked that one because it's an Oscar winner, won in 1939, Wizard of Oz, and also just because it's become sort of the anthem of Hollywood. It was Judy Garland's song. It's sort of that disconnect between like the dream and the reality. So you played it beautifully, Dale. Thank you. So, um, here's from Schitt's Creek, and I love it. I know a few people who are in this group like it too. When Alexis is interviewing her mother, Moira, played by Catherine O'Hara, and she says, "What is your favorite season?" And Moira goes, "Awards." That's such a classic Moira moment. And I think I think I connect. I was binging this during pandemic, and for her, like them being stuck in this motel, like that's familiar, like being stuck and not really being able to go anyplace and just wanting to be part of something bigger and like exciting. And that, like her memories of being part of that, that connected with me. So in a way, there's sort of the sadness of being disconnected, but also I think this year more than any other year, like watching TV and film has become heroic because it's like so many our leaders are saying stay home, don't go out and spread the virus. And so we're kind of like, okay, we're home. So we're streaming a lot. I think streaming's gone up 93% in the pandemic. So a lot more just seeking out content and wanting, to find good things to watch. So, the streaming services were already, because especially Netflix, some of those were already becoming powerful, but now especially they really are. There's more and more of them. There's streaming wars. I just tagged that phrase, but there's just so many services popping up. We seem to have more and more and more, and accumulating them from different places. And incidentally enough, Schitt's Creek. Just talking about also the awards culture and awards industry as it relates to the entertainment industry. Schitt's Creek has won several awards this season. It was their last season, so that was a good follow up. So, entertainment can be many things. It help us get through the day. It can like just be a lift, a way to connect with people, and also it can be a remedy for next slide. Can be a remedy for society's ills. I think a lot of people are concerned that Asian Americans are under attack verbally and physically. Hate crimes in this group have gone up significantly since COVID. That's very concerning. And interestingly enough, there have been two big Korean films. Last year, Parasite won Best Picture at the Oscar, which was huge because it's rare to have a foreign language film win that award. And this year, and that one's sort of a like dark comedy that's set in Korea. This year, Minari is another Korean American film, which is set in Oklahoma, which is about a family from Korea trying to start a farm. I think that really helps to have more of a connection to that community. Paul, if you would play the video. It started as a small film and it blew up to this huge international success. So those things can happen. Anything can happen. Huh? So after film school, I worked on a few independent movies. Some of them paid, some of them are low paid to no paid. But it was a cool experience, but it's difficult sometimes to find footing in terms of having a career. So I ended up kind of drifting to social work, which I've also loved doing that. But in my social work master's program, I got connected with a documentary filmmaker who's a UU minister in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where we were at that time. And we made I helped her on her project, and I ended up, to toot my own horn, I ended up winning a Woman in Leadership Award for working on that documentary. It's called Life Without, and it's about children of incarcerated parents. And although we didn't have a red carpet or I didn't work a tour, it was got snacks, and it was a good experience, like to be acknowledged for something I had been working on. So my taste of the award life, I guess. Next slide, the one that says award culture. Okay, so why talk about this? Is it like is there a social significance to award shows? Yes, I'd say there is. And a business and entertainment significance has, mass media has a strong impact on society. The U.S. is by far the largest exporter and producer of entertainment. Um, and the award shows influence what gets produced and who gets a voice, because it's become so important to win awards and to be recognized that it does impact it. Um, there's a there's a lot of money involved. I mean, the awards have become their own show. So they I think the highest grossing one is the Oscar, which brings in $160 million in ad revenue just for that one show. It's 2.6 million for a 30-second spot in the Oscars. Not as big as the Super Bowl, but still pretty significant. And then also fashion has become a big part of it. Big fashion houses like Valentino and Versace will spend millions to get their outfits onto celebrities. Not just the cost of the outfit, but everything that goes with it. One question I asked myself, has the UU won an Oscar? Actually, last year, Greta Gerwig won for Best Writing. She did Little Women and Lady Bird, both were award winners. So pretty recent, actually. And also I included Joan Rivers on here because Joan kind of was the one that ignited the whole red carpet show, made it its own thing, And so she's certainly a personality. She's passed on now, but she certainly was a personality. Next slide. So who's involved in awards? There's quite a few of them now. Each of the groups, like film, television, music, theater, all have their own academy, and each of their academies, which is made up of people in that business, they have awards and pick who should win. Then there's groups like the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, who does the Golden Globes, which has become another big show. There's the guilds within each of them. Each have their own awards. Like the SAG is the only one that's televised, but Screen Actors Guild, Writers Guild. And that's pretty prestigious. I mean, to be honored by your own guild is certainly a big deal. Then award shows there's more and more of them. It's just like every network has their own award shows. And there's even like the Razzies, which I don't know if anyone's aware of those, but they're like more of a satire. Like, what was the worst movie this year? I think last year, if Parasite was the best, I think Cats was the worst. But I never quite got around to seeing Cats, and I don't know if I will, but that's kind of entertaining. All right, next slide. So there's this push and pull. It's actually gone on for a long time in the industry between the studio pictures and the independents, and they're not mutually exclusive of each other. But what it is the studios are the bigger businesses, the corporations that have a lot of capital and a lot of influence, and the independents are projects that are produced outside of the studios. And so the studios are going to want to make money, so that more and more they're dependent on franchises like Avengers and things like that, Star Wars, those kind of things that are guaranteed to make money, but don't tend to be more predictable. But so there's the independent, which is sort of this other area, like the more artistic films, like things like documentary filmmaking, short films, certain animation or certain types of animation, independent international film. Well, the rest of the world watches has no problem watching American films that are subtitled. The American audiences struggle with that. They rarely like to watch subtitled films. So there's kind of that secondary market for them. And so here I have Robert Redford, who started the Sundance Institute I mentioned before. This has been huge. A lot of filmmakers have gotten their start with, in Sundance or something like that, showing their films. And they go on, like one example is Ryan Coogler, who started as, had shown his film Fruitvale Station at Sundance and now directed Black Panther. I mean, he went from a small film to huge film. So it can go any which way. And the studios do like to make artistic pictures. I mean, they do help smaller companies get distribution. They have in-house independent companies, because they want to win awards, to be part of that. So that goes, like I said, it goes every which way. Some, there's certain, the other side of this is that a lot of people feel like it's not fair that like only one type of film gets awards. They're like, what about comedies? Like, I like comedies. Why don't they get awards? What about horror films or action adventures that like a lot of them are very good. Why are they looked over? And certainly this isn't like an ongoing conversation within the industry. So certainly, like I said, this is the positive side to the whole awards culture, the awards scene. There's other negative things that have happened. First person that comes to mind is Harvey Weinstein. So Harvey and Bob Weinstein were started a production company called Miramax back in the They were around since the 80s. It was in New York. They were kind of outside the Hollywood system. And Harvey wanted to be like Mr. Hollywood, right? So what had happened in 1999, a few years ago, Spielberg had created the masterpiece Saving Private Ryan. And which was fantastic. It was expected to win everything. It's technically an amazing film. Well, Harvey had made a film called Shakespeare in Love, which wasn't getting that much buzz, but he decided it was going to, and he went in there and he really used his power and influence. He's like, I'm going to win Best Picture for this film, and that was the first year that it became like a really contentious sort of the awards. It really spiced it up, and it ended up winning Best Picture. And the awkward thing about this whole that he had lured Gwyneth Paltrow to his hotel room a few years earlier, and he's just a real scumbag who was harming women and very controlling and very abusive. This went on for a long time, and just this picture just makes me want to cringe, just like that. What's in the background on this? But in 2015, there were two reporters for the Times, Jodie Cantor and Megan Twohey, who were both very, very brave. This was very brave of them to come out and tell the story. A lot of women were afraid to come forth. And so, sorry, my voice is a little off, but they told the story, and they told what he'd been doing, and they blew it right open, and it became a huge national conversation. The Me Too movement came out of this award culture, and Time's Up, and it became, and now it's still very much conversation, talking about, not that Harvey Weinstein was the first or the last to abuse people who worked for him, but like certainly we're having conversations how to keep this from happening in the future. Next slide, Oscar so white. Also, another controversy that was about the same time, it was a big couple of years for controversies. We had the Oscars So White. And so I want to do a little bit of history there too. On the top left here, you have Hattie Mcdaniel, who was in Gone with the Wind. Now, Gone with the Wind is by far the most successful film ever made for several reasons, but which I won't go into all of them. But she was a big part of the film, right? And she wasn't allowed to pretend. This is 1939. She wasn't allowed to attend the premiere because of her color. She was not allowed to be in the main room at the Oscar ceremony, but she won Best Supporting Actress, which was huge, really. And she carried herself with such grace. But it would be 24 years until Sidney Poitier would win for Lilies of the Field. That's a long time. 27 more years, so it gets worse, until Whoopi Goldberg won for Ghost. So even though people of color had been involved in film since the beginning, there had not been acknowledged by the awards. So this is something that we've picked up a lot. I want to read a quote this is by Reggie Ugwu of the Times. It says, in January 2015, the Academy awarded all 20 acting nominations to white actors for the first of 2 consecutive years, inspiring April Reign to create the hashtag Oscars So White. Reign, then a campaign finance lawyer and pop culture obsessed contributor to a loose community of Black Twitter users, was hardly a Hollywood power broker, but her words, coming on the heels of Black Lives Matter, erupted like a big bang, creating the conditions for a constellation of social movements. So, just someone putting Oscars So White on her Twitter feed, that just created a movement. I mean, anybody can create a movement. That's kind of exciting. And there have been more, and this year has been the best as far as having people of color be nominated for awards. And if you would play the clip.
There were a few major snubs, but really I think the major takeaway of this morning's Oscar nominations were that they were historic. There was historic numbers in diversity and inclusion for women, and I think that was a very important stride forward.
I don't see your name in lights. Oh, I just play the piece, whatever they want. I don't criticize other people's music. I ain't like you, Cup. I got talent. Oh, me in this room.
Hello, coffee? It was kind of historic all the way around for actually spreading things out and getting more diversity across gender lines and also race. But I think there's still so much more that needs to be done. We have so much further to go, but this was definitely a vast improvement. And I think a lot of people were happy to not see another Oscar So White situation.
Yeah, I like how she said that. I mean, think about the films that we send around the world, or the media we produce and send around the world, really sends a message about what we value. If you think about that, think about, like, just as consumers, I know that's, it's like, how do we have an influence in this? Well, we're consumers, and it's like, what do we choose to watch? Do we choose, to watch things by people who have our values, who honor people over the world, or people who treat each other with respect, the opposite of Harvey Weinstein. And I think those conversations have obviously ignited, and we need to just be part of that conversation on how to make sure that everyone's treated with respect and dignity. That's what we're about. And I believe that if the industry really followed that and really, if that was their desire, then they would make incredible films consistently. So to end with, what's been happening this year in awards and in the business? The big thing is COVID. I mean, the awards have been at home this year. So instead of the red carpet, there's watching people, whether they're wearing a hoodie or whether they're wearing a $50,000 gown, they're sitting down, which is kind of interesting, and more laid back, and which has been interesting. But also, like, COVID is really changing the business. I mean, theaters were already struggling, but now, like, the studios are breaking their ties with theaters, which is they've never done before, and kind of saying, we're just going to go straight to streaming. Like, the same day it opens in the theater, you can watch it at home for $20-$30. That's a big shift. So that's them breaking those relationships. So me, personally, I would be so sad if theaters went away, because I love going to the theater. I don't think they're going to go away entirely. I think it's just a shift. And again, I talked about streaming services having, if Sony can hire someone like Aaron Sorkin, so can Netflix. I mean, he just did Trial of the Chicago 7 with them. One of the great filmmakers working with Netflix, like, they have the resources just like the studios do. So that's been a shift. Also, the formatting is a lot different. That you don't necessarily have just like half-hour TV shows or 2-hour movies. They can do whatever they want, and it's working for them. And talking about the big films this year, it's very sad that Chadwick Boseman died, and I promised I wouldn't cry, but he's so amazing. Like, for him to do 2 or 3 movies the year he died of cancer, and to put his heart and soul into his performance in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I mean, he's already won several awards. He will probably win the Oscar. It's heartbreaking, but it's like, I think that's his legacy, to work hard and to make good work. It matters, And so he will win. And there've been, it said in the clip, there are 2 women who've been nominated for their, Chloe Zhang for Nomadland, which is a very good independent film, and then Regina King for Night in Miami, which is which is also very well done. I'd recommend that also. I also put up Queen's Gambit here because remember last time I talked about foster care. Here's a movie about an orphan / foster child who is a genius and who actually finds a foster home that's loving and supportive and not perfect. I know there's some issues, but I appreciated that they had a good foster situation in that. So as I close, I would like to challenge everyone to go and see something that you know, something maybe that you wouldn't normally, but find a documentary or an independent film or something like that, and then talk about it with people around you. And that's a way to inspire change as well. Thank you. I appreciate your time. And we'll go to this, and I'll give it back to you, Paul.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Harmony UU podcast. Check us out online at harmonyuu.org for more details. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search Harmony UU. If you're in the Cincinnati area, please stop by one of our services on the first and third Sunday of each month at 10 a.m.